Hello guys, today I'll teach you about grid layouts in Java. To begin with, grid layout will arrange all your components in a grid of cells. Each component will fill up all the available space within its cell, and all these cells will be of the same size. What you are seeing on my screen here, it's a bunch of buttons displayed in a grid layout. So where do you need to use this grid layout? For example, when you are developing a calculator application, a tic-tac application, a video calling application, or any other application that needs you or requires you to divide space evenly among the components. So with that said, let's dive in and we see how to do this. First of all, I'll first remove everything and I remain with only the J frame. So on my screen, I have the J frame, which we said we'll be using throughout these entire lectures. I'll proceed also to remove any unused imports. So I'll proceed here to create a button. I will say J button, button 1, and say button equals to new J button. I'll copy this, paste it here, and I say button 1. I pass in a text, button 1. I'll import the J button and I'll add the J button to our frame to make it visible. So let me run to see what we currently have. So currently we have one button which is displayed filling up our entire screen. So this button is filling up our entire frame because by default the J frame is using the border layout. This border layout will position this component in the center, and that will make it to fill up all the space available. So let me create other buttons so that we have like 9 buttons. So it's worth noting that we have this way of creating buttons, but I'll use the shorthand to make this video smaller and also to have fewer lines of code. I'll copy this from here and paste it here, and I'll delete this. So to create other buttons, I'll copy this and paste it 8 times. Now say this is 2, this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I'll run to see what we have. So this is our output. Currently, we are having only button 9 displayed. Why? Because we didn't specify the layout, and the JFrame is using its border layout to display these components. So in reality, all the buttons are displayed, but button 9 is displayed on top of button 8, and button 8 is on top of button 7. So it goes like that up to button 1. So in order to display all our buttons, let's define a grid layout on the J frame. So I'll come here and I will get the name of our J frame. I'll copy this and say dot set layout. I'll go with set layout. Then I'll pass in a new grid layout. New grid layout. So I'll need to import this layout. So I've added our layout. So let me run and see what we currently have. So currently, this is what we have. If you make this more large, these are our buttons. So it's worth noting that if you change the size of the frame, the buttons will be responding to the changes. So, but it's also worth noting that we can define some cells, or we can define rows and columns for our layout. So to define rows and columns, we come here and we pass in, let me pass in, for example, a 3 by 3. So now you can see that we have 3 rows and 3 columns. So what will happen? For example, if we add another component? For example, we have 10 buttons. Like, the components cannot be are not even, or they cannot be divided evenly. So let me come here, I'll add another button. So this is button 10. Let me run the program. So this is what will happen. This layout, it will create for us another column. So it will be having 4 columns and 3 rows, like this. But it will try to distribute the space evenly among all these components. So you can see that all these cells, they are of the same size. It's also worth noting that we can add some spacing to our cells. How can we do that? We will just come here and we'll pass in a spacing between the columns, and we can pass in a spacing also between the rows. So let me first make it 10 to 0 and run. So when you run this, you are able to see that we have a space of 10 in between our columns and a space of 0 in between our rows. So let's also add a spacing of 10 in between the rows. So when I make this 0, I change this 0 to 10 and run. So currently we have a space in between the rows of 10 and a space of 10 in between the columns. So basically, these are the basics of the grid layout.